We think of simplicity as subtraction, as taking things away, as loss. But Thoreau saw it as the opposite, not losing but recovering, not emptying but clearing space so something real can arrive. He once wrote, "Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify." And he lived it. While the world rushed toward more speed, more progress, more convenience, Thoreau stepped back, not out of hatred for the world, but out of reverence for life. He believed that the greatest threat to the soul was not violence, but distraction. Not what we lack, but what we carry without noticing. The possessions we don't need, the obligations we don't question, the noise we call information, the urgency we confuse with importance. We're told to want, to fill every space, to accumulate, to optimize, to expand. But Thoreau walked the opposite direction, into the woods, into silence, into the unmarketable truth that most of what we chase makes us smaller. He wrote, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone." And in that letting go, he became vast. Because the unnecessary weighs more than we think. It clutters not just our homes, but our minds, our breath, our attention. It pulls us out of the present and into the endless scroll of comparison, craving, and noise. And when we are full of that, there's no room left for anything real. No room for stillness, for thought, for being. So Thoreau's simplicity wasn't aesthetic, it was survival, a refusal to be buried alive by what the world insists we need. And the question he asks us gently but urgently is this: what are you carrying that you never asked for? And who could you be if you put it down? We think complexity is sophistication, that to understand more, we must add more data, more depth, more theory. But Thoreau saw another way. Simplicity is not the absence of depth. It is the beginning of clarity. To simplify is not to shrink the world. It is to finally see it. When you remove the noise, the signal emerges. When you stop chasing, the shape of what matters becomes visible. Not because you made life smaller, but because you made yourself still enough to notice. Thoreau wrote, "I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life. But you can't do that if your mouth is already full, if your hands are already occupied, if your eyes are too busy scanning to actually look." Simplicity sharpens attention. It teaches the eye to notice the movement of wind in the grass, the exact shade of dusk through bare trees, the rhythm of your own heartbeat when nothing is pulling at you. This is not minimalism as trend. This is minimalism as awakening. Because the truth is the world is not hidden. It's just buried under everything we've placed between us and it. Simplicity is the act of stepping aside, of letting life reveal itself without needing to frame it, filter it, or fix it. Of saying, "I don't need more, I need less between me and what is." And when you do that, when you remove the excess, you begin to see what was always there, patient, quiet, undemanding. The way light falls on a wooden table, the sound of wind pressing against the window, the warmth of stillness when you realize you're not supposed to be anywhere else. Thoreau didn't go to the woods to escape. He went to see. And what he saw was this: life is already full. We just have to stop cluttering the view. Thoreau left the town for the forest, not because he hated people, but because he wanted to remember something deeper than them. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately." To him, nature was not background, it was instruction. It didn't speak in words, but in rhythm, in silence, in presence. Nature doesn't rush, it doesn't optimize, It doesn't ask what time it is, and yet it moves with perfect timing. The seed falls when the wind takes it. The tree grows at the pace of roots. The river bends because the earth asks it to, not because it read a book on goal setting. This rhythm is not slow, it's true. And Thoreau saw in it something we've forgotten, that when you stop forcing life, you start aligning with it. Modern life says, move faster, do more, don't fall behind. But nature has no behind, no schedule, no urgency, only readiness, only unfolding. And when Thoreau immersed himself in that, he discovered a deeper current, one we all carry, but rarely hear. A rhythm not based on pressure, but on being in season. And when you return to that rhythm, when you match your inner pace to the quiet tempo of trees and water and wind, something softens. Your nervous system, your breath, your fear of missing out. Because you realize nature never hurries and still, everything gets done. So what if you stopped pushing? What if you stopped accelerating toward a future that never arrives? What if you trusted that the most essential things do not happen by force, but by readiness? This was Thoreau's simplicity, not a rejection of life, but a refusal to be pulled out of sync with it. He didn't run away, he returned. And when he did, he found something no clock can measure: peace that moves, but never rushes. We spend years gathering objects, devices, subscriptions, tools, status. But Thoreau saw what we miss. Everything you own owns a piece of you. Every possession takes space, not just on shelves, but in your mind, in your attention, in your peace. The more you have, the more you must maintain, the more you must protect, the more you must pay for, think about, clean, store, move. Things don't just sit there, they ask for you. Thoreau wrote, "A man is rich not in what he possesses, but in what he can afford to let go." He wasn't poor, he was unburdened, because he realized that freedom isn't found in ownership, but in detachment. Not in denying pleasure, but in refusing to become a servant to what you think you need. The house you upgrade for comfort becomes a prison for your attention. The collection you build for beauty becomes a shrine to maintenance. The device you carry to save time becomes the very thing that steals it. Thoreau didn't call for asceticism. He called for honesty. Ask yourself, do I use this or does it use me? Does it serve life or replace it? Do I carry it or does it carry my identity? Because there is a quiet tax on every more. And most people don't notice they're paying it until they've forgotten what silence feels like. Thoreau's cabin was small, but in it, he found immense space because nothing pulled his attention away from what mattered. And when you remove the clutter, what's left is not lack, it's presence. Not emptiness, but room to see, feel, breathe. And then you remember, the more you let go, the more of yourself returns. We treat silence like a void, as something to fill, something to escape, something to cure with sound, stimulation, speech. But Thoreau knew, silence is not the absence of life, it is the presence of depth. He went to the woods not just for solitude, but for what rises in the absence of noise. Because when everything external fades, you begin to hear what was always there, quietly waiting underneath the surface. Your thoughts, your rhythms, your discomforts, your truths. And that is why silence frightens so many, not because it's empty, but because it's honest. Thoreau wrote, "It is not enough to be busy, so are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about?" And when you sit in silence, truly sit, you begin to ask this too. You begin to hear the inner noise, the chasing, the performing, the justifying. All of it floats up when the world gets quiet. But if you stay, if you don't reach for the next distraction, you begin to hear something deeper. Stillness, clarity, self. Not the self shaped by schedule or screen, but the quiet self that lives underneath all that. The self that is not performing, not achieving, not explaining. Just being and breathing and remembering that existence in itself is enough. Thoreau didn't go into the woods to find silence. He went because he knew it would reveal him, not through noise, but through absence. And in that absence, something grew. Not productivity, not plans, but presence. The kind that doesn't need to be named to be real. The kind that doesn't speak but teaches more than words ever could. Because silence is not what's missing. It's what we've forgotten how to hear. We spend money. We track it. We budget it. We fear running out of it. But Thoreau understood. Time is the real cost of everything. Not what something costs you in dollars, but what it steals from you in hours, in attention, in life. He wrote, "The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it." That chair, that upgrade, that plan, that obligation, they don't just ask for money, they ask for you, your time, your care, your energy, your focus. And once it's gone, you can't get it back. But here's the catch. Most people don't spend time. They give it away, not deliberately, but by default, to noise, to habits, to demands that never pause to ask if they're worth it. We protect our wallets, but not our mornings, not our attention spans, not our rest. We forget that later is not guaranteed, that someday is not a date on the calendar, that every time we say yes out of fear, we say no to something that might have mattered more. Thoreau lived simply, not to avoid life, but to stop wasting it. He knew that time spent with presence is worth more than time filled with pressure, that a single hour of stillness can feed the soul more than a year of rushed accomplishment. And so he asked himself, and now asks you, what are you trading your life for? And is it worth the cost? Because the math is simple, even if the truth is hard. Every moment is an investment, and your life is the return. We're told that freedom means options, that to have more choices, more paths, more things is to be empowered. But Thoreau saw something deeper. Freedom is not in multiplying choices. It's in reducing the noise between you and what truly matters. Because when everything is possible, nothing feels certain. When you can go anywhere, you often go nowhere. He didn't want the buffet of modern life. He wanted the clarity of enough, the stillness that comes when you stop asking, "What else?" and start asking, "What's real?" He wrote, "The man who goes alone can start today, but he who travels with another must wait till that other is ready." It wasn't about isolation. It was about independence from confusion. Because choice in excess becomes a burden. It distracts, it delays, it deceives. You think you're free, but you're stuck in indecision, stuck in comparisons, stuck in a constant evaluation of what if. And while you weigh all the options, your life quietly passes. Thoreau found freedom not in adding more roads, but in choosing one and walking it fully. He simplified not to shrink life, but to concentrate it, to taste it, to feel it, to know that every step was his own, not borrowed from someone else's vision of success. In a world of infinite tabs, freedom is in closing most of them, in saying, "This is enough. This is mine. This is the rhythm I choose to move by. Because simplicity is not a restriction, it's a return to clarity, to direction, to inner sovereignty. And when you find that you no longer chase freedom, you become it. This is the line, the one that stayed, the one that echoes long after the rest fades. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately. Not efficiently, not productively, not even peacefully. Deliberately. To Thoreau, that word meant everything. It meant not letting the world decide your pace, not confusing movement with meaning, not sleeping through your own life while chasing someone else's. To live deliberately is to choose, and then to stay chosen. To mean your actions, to feel your time, to know even in silence that you are not drifting, you are being. In a culture of default, this is rebellion, not loud, but complete. Thoreau left town, left comfort, left the chorus of expectation because he feared one thing more than discomfort: living a life that wasn't fully his. He wrote, "I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear." And so he built a cabin, not to isolate himself, but to return to himself, to find out if life, when stripped of excess, could still be enough. And he discovered what many suspect but never dare test: that when you stop chasing and begin listening, you don't shrink, you expand. Because presence is not small, simplicity is not lack. They are the container for what's most powerful, most lasting, most human. To live deliberately is to reject autopilot, to ask every day, is this necessary? Is this true? Is this mine? And then to listen for the answer. Not from the crowd, but from the quiet place that remembers who you were before the world told you what to be. That's what Thoreau found in the woods, not a life of retreat, but a life reclaimed. A life that moved slowly, clearly, deliberately. And that kind of life in this world is a revolution.